I've reviewed dozens of phones, but never even touched a foldable. So why'd I buy the OnePlus Open? And after using it for a month, is it worth it? Let me give you 3 reasons why I bought the Open, then tell you about my experience with it. First off, price was the most important factor that kept me from buying a foldable before. So I paid just $513 for the Open. I traded in another great phone, the OnePlus 11. That trade-in meant I was able to drop that $1699 price tag way down. The second reason I decided to go with this foldable now is that there's been more than 5 years of R&D on hinges, bendable glass, and user-friendly software for this type of device. And it just doesn't feel as risky. While this is OnePlus's first foldable, it's actually just a global version of the Find N3 from Oppo, OnePlus's parent company. And Oppo has been making foldables for a few years at this point, so I'm not really scared about this device breaking in 2 months, even though I did buy the screen replacement warranty, just in case. The last reason is that I want to own and recommend good all-around devices, and I always thought folding phones were pretty pointless. Plus, there were problems, like the Samsung Fold's outer display that looks too narrow to feel normal, and the Pixel Fold that's too wide, heavy, and really does feel like a first generation product. With this video, I'm reviewing the Open as a regular phone first, and I'll occasionally compare it to the S23 Ultra, just to see if you're losing anything by switching to a foldable, since what I want from the Open is a traditional flagship device that allows some additional features because it's a foldable. So is it fast? Yes. Even with the year-old Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, 16 gigs of LPDDR5X RAM, and 512 gigs of UFS 4 storage, this has some of the best specs of any phone available at the time of recording. It speeds through opening apps, navigating the interface, and unlocking with its side-mounted fingerprint sensor. I prefer in-display sensors like the S23 Ultras, but OnePlus's solution is a bit faster. Honestly though, I only use it at night or when I have sunglasses on. Otherwise, I'm using Face Unlock, which is pretty good. Just make sure you go into Settings, Security and Privacy, Device Lock, Face and Fingerprint, and turn on the Inner Home Screen after unlocking feature. It's much faster. For gaming, the Open can play demanding titles at or near the highest settings, and it doesn't throttle terribly, as shown by the CPU throttling test and 3D Mark's wildlife stress test. Its top scores aren't as high as the S23 Ultras, but it is more stable in 3D Mark's stress test, and the overall difference is close enough not to matter for casual gamers. It also has a Hyper Boost gaming mode if you want to fine-tune some settings. Now, speed improves in a bunch of ways when you unfold the OnePlus Open, with multitasking getting the biggest improvement. Traditional multitasking isn't very usable in my opinion, but this is easy and a huge time saver. I can have 2 apps open side by side for video research, or possibly even 3 when I'm trying to find the best price for a new phone, piece of gear, or just leave YouTube playing while I lose at Wordle. Really, the biggest speed improvement for me is that I don't have to grab my laptop for these tasks, unless I just really have to have a keyboard. So how's the screen? The outer screen is excellent. The Open 6.31-inch LTPO3 OLED display, running at up to 120 Hz, looks very good. It's sharp, with a full HD Plus resolution, and easy to see outdoors, but definitely not as bright as the S23 Ultra. The screen is covered by ceramic guard glass instead of Victus 2 like the Samsung, but I've left the pre-installed screen protector on, so I'm honestly not sure how scratch resistant it's gonna be. The reason I left the screen protector on is so I can occasionally use the Open in this 90-degree mode for watching YouTube when I'm out and about. I watch a lot of YouTube and not worry about scratching the outer screen. Yep, you basically have to lay it on the screen if you're on a hard surface like a desk or table. Otherwise, the thick camera bump makes the OnePlus rock around. Now, the 7.82-inch inner display is fantastic. Still bright enough for outside use, LTPO3 up to 120 Hz again, but definitely more fragile than any screen you've used on a phone in the last decade. Even with the pre-installed screen protector, one downside is that depending on the aspect ratio of the videos you're viewing, you might not actually have any more screen real estate to work with, as you can see. Gaming is a whole nother story though. Giant Genshin is better, Massive Asphalt is better, and Huge Wordle just makes losing worse. Another huge win for the big inner screen is that I can practically use this device for remoting into my PC at work, which also cuts down on how often I have to lug around a laptop. Another potential use is as a second monitor when I'm just stuck with my laptop. I used Duet Display, and it turns the Open into a touchscreen display for my MacBook. Now, it hasn't been amazing for video playback, but it's still usable for editing documents while I'm doing something else on my laptop screen. The crease in the display is only noticeable to me when the screen is off. Yes, Yes, you can feel it, but it doesn't affect how I use the device at all. If this video has been helpful so far, please give it a like, and thank you. So what about the cameras? Again, OnePlus has partnered with high-end camera company Hasselblad for a bit of tinkering with this camera system, and it works very well. These are definitely flagship cameras that keep up and even beat the S23 Ultra in some scenarios. Samsung's photos are more processed, with additional sharpening and contrast, where the Opens are a little softer and warmer. Even the ultra-wide and telephoto lenses hold up fine, until you max out the zoom to 100x, where the S23 Ultra wins, since it cranks the sharpening up to 11 and manages to resolve the bricks on this building visibly better. The OnePlus changes up the selfie game though. Its exterior selfie cam looks comparable to the S23's, but maintains that same look from the main cameras. When you open the Open, you get another selfie camera that is inferior, but still delivers decent results. Another huge advantage is that you can use the front screen as a monitor to take selfies from your high-quality main cameras, which makes framing a selfie much easier. For nighttime shots, the OnePlus performs well, but with a more true-to-life look, which is less punchy and darker than Samsung's. In the absolute worst conditions, with this barely lit chalkboard shot, Samsung does win, since the OnePlus barely produces an image at all. By the way, shutter lag, not an issue with this device. There are a number of other interesting camera options to choose from, including a manual Hasselblad Pro mode that can deliver a different look for your photos as well. Video is much the same, although I do have a bug that prevents me from changing some settings on the Open, but stabilization is solid, color and detail are fine, and audio isn't bad. Ultra steady video is not as smooth as Samsung's, but still very stable. Plus, I walk through life like an injured giraffe chasing a cupcake, so this is pretty amazing. Alright, here's selfie video from the stock cam. Alright, here's the selfie camera on the S23 Ultra. Also, there's a movie mode with manual controls and a wide resolution that can work well, but for more on that and general video shooting on the OnePlus Open, please check out my OnePlus Open Camera comparison in the video description. The Open does have 3 speakers instead of the usual stereo pair, and they're loud with good sound quality.
Underestimating what you've taken on. Underestimating what you've taken on.
Of course, no headphone jack, but at least the USB-C port is 3.1 for faster file transfer. Battery life is fine. For days when you mostly use the device closed, you can have great battery life that outlasts the S23 Ultra. But if you're using the inner screen for a significant amount of time, the battery will drain quicker. Generally, the S23 Ultra lasts a full day and then some. The Open can last a day and a half for me if I don't use the inner display much, but sometimes I don't quite make it even a full day if I'm shooting a lot of video and using the inner display more regularly. Luckily, you can quickly charge the Open's 4,805 mAh battery with the included 67-watt charger from about 1% to full in 40 minutes. There's no wireless charging, but I don't mind. You do get wireless charging on the S23 Ultra, but you don't get a charger in the box, and the max charging speed is slower. In terms of software, I've liked the new Oxygen OS flavor of Android 13 that's shipped with the device. It's basically just Color OS that comes on Realme and Oppo phones, and I like Color OS as well. I always use Nova or Hyperion launcher on my devices as long as they work with gesture navigation, but on the Open, I'm just sticking with the stock launcher since it's designed to handle the inner screen with the dock. This is a good time to mention that you do have video out with the OnePlus Open via the USB 3.1 port, which means you could hook it up to a monitor with a keyboard and mouse and have a semi-laptop replacement. This option is better implemented on the S23 Ultra with Samsung's DeX environment, but still, it's nice to have. If you're worried about software updates, don't. The Open is scheduled to get 4 major Android updates and another year of security updates, which matches what Samsung is offering on its flagship phones at the time of recording. That gives OnePlus plenty of time to sort out my camera bug, which is surprisingly the only bug I found. A few last things. Connectivity in terms of call quality, network data, and Wi-Fi speed, everything's been totally fine. The cellular reception I get in building interiors is easily better than the S23's, which is great. Haptics are strong and tight, as you would expect, and something that really surprised me is that the Open feels lighter than the S23 Ultra, even though it's a tiny bit heavier. Although this is a thicker phone that becomes super thick with the camera bump included, it still handles well when closed, unlike the S23 for me. Oh, and you get an alert slider on the side, which I still prefer for switching between ring and vibrate. The biggest downside currently is that it's only IPX4 rated for water splashes, no dust, which is certain to get inside the phone with this hinge. And that's why I bought the warranty for screen replacements, since that's far behind the IPX IP68 rating from most flagships like the S23 Ultra, which offers significant protection from water and dust. Basically, the best feature about this phone is its greatest weakness. But at the discounted price of $500, I'm willing to jump into the future of phones, even with the risk of the inner screen failing, and I'm really glad I did. Compared to the S23 Ultra, the OnePlus Open has better handling when closed, competitive cameras, performance that's just as fast with the exception of demanding games, solid software and update guarantees, and then a bunch of new possibilities that come with the foldable form factor in terms of multitasking, gaming, camera features, and more. So if you need to do more with your phone, or if you're ready to see what the future of mobile devices could be, but you don't want to sacrifice normal flagship capabilities, the OnePlus Open is a great choice. Please subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and check out my OnePlus Open Camera test right up here for a comparison with a bunch of pro video apps. As always, feel free to comment with any questions you might have, and I will answer them perfectly. Maybe even faster, since I can now reply while losing at Wordle.